I think they're still going to experiment. They're not going to do things that they did between days 1 through 5, but I think based off of game 1, they might just take the Habwa for themselves.
Habwa has done pretty well for himself so far today, hasn't he? Had the game clinching and set clinching victory with Trifecta being piloted by Paul. Right there for CaptainTwig, looked like a very potent pick. It was one that was played a lot during Season 5 or during the online phases, kind of fell off before the LAN, but we're starting to see the waters rise once again.
Option is for first pick for a rival here after their loss. Obviously, they get the choice of if they want to go first or second. They're going to take the first here, and instead, they're just going to ban them.
Last game, it was Obey with first pick. It was normal bans, I would say. It was the Odin and the Freya coming out of Obey into the Erlongshen Mercury for a rival, but then it was the first pick Fenrir for Obey, and then everything else went out the window.
Now they're trying to right the ship, but still in that first pick position, you get a throwaway ban. Habwa, certainly not a bad one. Odin follows that up, so now Obey has the choice. Do we want to leave open Pele for someone on rival? Do we want to try and leave open both Erlong and Pele so we can get at least one of those selections? Terra's still on the table. She's been first picked an awful lot so far this week.
I think they're just going to first pick out Puch if it's available. If Obey don't take that away right now, then rival should snap pick it.
Feels like it's all fun and games, right? We'll try these weird comps. We're both experimenting. We both already went. And then one team loses, and it's going to be like, okay, we're going to win now. Because the pride ends up getting the better of you, and you really don't want to go out like a couple buses.
You don't want the other team to use ammunition against you at any sort of LAN event, right? Like, just to even, like, call you out in joking manner.
Well, we see the Odin is the next god banned away here by rival, which would lead to believe that Opwash could be one of the first gods picked up by them. At the same time, if they go with this Opwash first pick, that leaves a couple of big priorities open for Obey. Instead, they're going to pick the Fenrir. They said, hey, anything you can do, we can do better.
That could be the case. iRaffer had a good game on in the first one, but I'm expecting this maybe to be flexed as well. I'm not sure if Callus is going to pilot it or where it's going to go, but with Freya still open, Pele still available, I'm surprised that rival go for Fenrir.
Fenrir first pick again, back-to-back games. I think it's the flexibility of it. I think it's got a good matchup against a lot of the meta gods right now, and it just is unanswerable for a lot of these teams so far. I'm sure the ones that have already qualified are sitting at home saying, okay, we better be ready for when Fenrir comes, because I don't know if they've been practicing with Fenrir or not, but the teams they'll play coming out of these placement rounds will have been very used to going up against and playing with the Fenrir.
Well, you called it, Freya, but instead of the Pele after, it's the Bakasura here locked in by Obey. I mentioned it earlier, we haven't really seen all that much with the Bakasura. You mentioned it's Feast or Famine. I mean, I'm just confused by it a little bit.
Against Fenrir, it makes sense, right? Regurgitate, applying that cripple field to prevent the Brutalize, to prevent the Unchained, but then Ragnarok could be used to counteract that CC immunity and then just get on out of the action, or maybe pull Bakasura after CC immunity fades away. It was Arachne hovered over for a little bit from Arrival, now switching things up to the Scotty. A good way to self-peel for yourself. You drop that ice rink right under you, Bakasura is going to start slipping and sliding.
I do wonder if that's guaranteed to be Bakasura in the jungle, because that would be a good way for Obey to experiment, wouldn't it? A little bit of Baka solo maybe for Xaliea. It's something that we haven't seen at all really this week. Decent amount of Baka, but it's always been in the jungle.
Season 2 solo days, highlighted by Cyclone Spin. If anyone has made it happen, he definitely has. But in the Europe side, Xaliea really liked that pick as well. Maybe even in Season 1, quite heavily. I remember even Divios and Omega had a little bit of Baka versus Osiris action at the SWC. And Baka will come in and out of the meta very often.
Ho-Yi and Terra, the next gods picked up here by rival. We've been seeing a lot of Terra this weekend. We've been seeing a lot of Ho-Yi. Think this Terra's going solo, or do we still have absolutely no clue?
J-Mac, if you told me Terra was going mid in this set, I wouldn't be surprised.
Damn, those are clean. I didn't see them earlier.
Okay.
I saw the poll.
100%.
Those are pretty clean. I'm not going to mess with those. And they don't have a random zip tie on them, so I really like them.
That's pretty good shoes, I'm not going to lie. He's got some style. I'll give Deathwalker that, the young gun.
Totally. Why is your shoe now on the desk?
What are you talking about? This shoe?
Yeah, the shoe that you just took off your foot and put on the desk.
I don't know what you're talking about here, Aggro.
He just like slapped it up on the table. He's like, oh yeah, you got a shoe? I got a shoe too.
Just brought it up.
You were supposed to let it be suspenseful so that when it comes back to us,
Well, no one would know. They wouldn't know it's your shoe. They would just say there is a shoe on the desk. And I was trying to help you out a little bit.
You never know. That could have been my shoe that
so
I threw
I'm going to show off my
you.
shoe now.
Okay.
Because if Deathwalker's going to do it, as will I.
Okay, I'm going to not.
No.
Even if Anatoly and Deathwalker are doing it,
I don't blame you for not showing off those shoes.
What, you don't like the Chucks?
No.
They're a little dirty, but that's because they're well loved.
They're aged. They
That's
aged
right.
well
All
like a
right.
fine
Just
wine.
because my dog may have chewed one of the shoelaces and I haven't cleaned
Sure.
them in forever doesn't mean I'm not proud of them, Toly.
Susano and Kuzenbo banned away here by Obey and Rival in this second round of the ban phase. I do think that poll stands true. I think Deathwalker wins that by a mile over.
Agreed.
Oh, no way.
Agreed.
No way.
Not even, okay, we're not counting yours,
Not
Toly. We're
counting
saying
yours here.
between
Oh,
Just
F
between
dots?
Deathwalker and F dot.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Deathwalker.
It was like
If
70.
Tom took the zip tie off his shoes, they would be way better.
It'd be way closer too. It wouldn't be like
I know.
75% in his favor onto that one.
Those are clean, baby. I like what Deathwalker
My shoes should
did
have been
going
in
on.
the poll.
If Toly's shoes were in there, I'm still voting for Deathwalker. So now Obey have the chance to get their ban in there. They went with the Janus, something that is a little bit.
What is this camera angle?
They're just having fun.
Hold on a second. Can we talk about that camera angle for a second? He's
good.
actually kneeling down beside it.
He had to get a shot of the shoes, my man. You know.
He had the paparazzi. He had to do a paparazzi pose to get that. Like, oh yeah, you got that. Like, like your best friend doing the Instagram style photo op for you.
We're really in real high-res hours now.
Did you see the team photo from Obey earlier that got posted on Twitter? All the faces that the 5 players made.
No, not
pretty
yet.
good.
That is classic Obey. I highly recommend anybody go onto the Obey Twitter. Look at the team photo right as this game was about to start up. It's fantastic. Pele, Geb banned away here for the last ones, and Obey, they're going to lock in the Fafnir.
Fafnir with the attack speed boost for the Freya and Bakasura makes a little bit of sense. Coerce, spreading into the AoE once you do that Draconic Corruption. I'm expecting Rival to look for some anti-attack speed if they really want to. They have Kumakarna available to them, the little baby, Vamana as well.
Rival's got a couple decisions to make, and Deathwalker is seeing into the future right now with his setup he's got going on, deciding on what he wants to play. Terra's still available. Oh no, Terra's already locked in for Rival, so they're hovering Nuwa Loki. That would be an interesting duo, but I don't anticipate that going the way of Rival.
No, I don't think so in the slightest. Maybe the Sun Wukong could be locked in,
Cooper,
but the new
Cooper.
what is Cooper doing?
Cooper,
here?
what are you
Cooper
doing?
decides to bring one of his own shoes
Is this
into
what's
the
happening
mix.
now?
Is
Coop,
this just-
it's not bad.
Coop, this isn't bad.
It's not too shabby.
This is nice.
It's a little dirty, but
It's not
I'd call
too
it
shabby.
clean.
This is Cooper, our admin here for the League Ops team.
That's right.
This is his shoe.
He's wearing his skill shot referee jersey, so the black and orange, and then a little white and black shoe. 10 out of 10. Coop, keep it up.
Solid.
There you go.
It's just we're going through the wardrobe here today for
Pretty
the
much.
skill shot set.
Apparently so.
I mean, we get all these shots of the waist up, right? And we never really show off our shoes. So now's the time to do it.
Well, you can see our shoes at DreamHack. We got. I'll be rocking a good shoe game when it comes time for DreamHack Atlanta.
Hey, I gotta be fresh every day, baby.
That's right.
Every day. I'm wearing
Every
a
day.
solid black leather shoes. That's all I'm wearing. It's nothing fancy. I'll
That'll
say
do.
that.
I mean, that'll do.
That's
They
not
work.
bad.
They work.
Nothing to be ashamed of there, J-Mac.
You know what really works? Puch. Picked up here by Rival and Ratatoskr to jump in onto that conversation with it, being able to get the nice knock up. Looking a little more solid here from Rival.
8th pick, I'll wash. Not too bad. Last pick, Guan Yu. A little spicy out of Obey Alliance, considering there's anti-healing for the Puchster. It's going to be hard for Guan Yu to get in the thick of things against his Hui Terra.
Yeah, that will be difficult, but it isn't easy to interrupt that Talu Assault if that is Terra in the solo lane. You have your 2, but you've got enough mobility with the Guan Yu that I imagine you'd be able to move out of that more often than it'll actually end up hitting you. And Guan Yu that's given a good laning phase, if he gets ahead, can be really, really scary. He does a lot of damage and brings a ton of sustain to your team.
That penetration from the Talu Assault can make him easily do unexpected damage if you're not too familiar with it, and it could definitely burn through some of these squishy targets, specifically the Hui and the Puchster.
Don't forget as well, I mean, Puch really struggles against gods that can lock him down pretty easily, can stay on top of him. How are you peeling away that ultimate from Guan Yu that's going to sit on top of you, do a ton of damage, and Opwash might not be able to survive through all that damage.
That cavalry charge is going to be hard to deal with. There's no Odin, there's no walls that you can really block the pathing. So whoever's playing this Guan Yu should have a field day against the Puchster.
It feels like the Terra is pretty much the only real answer that they have to this Guan Yu to not only stop the Talo Assault, but if they get the walls as well. But I don't imagine that this is going to be any normal game that we're seeing here. Rival Obey, game number 2. Casters, what do you got?
I've got game number 2 of Rival up against Obey. J-Matt, I've also got nicer shoes than you. And he can't say anything about it, so I'll just take the W on that. Taco, this game number 2 between these two teams looks a little bit more standard than what we saw in game number 1. The Ataraxia, or sorry, the Freya for Ataraxia, the Bakasura. We're seeing the Opwash here, the Fenrir support. Things are looking fairly standard.
PrettyPriMe, though, on that Janus. Been a hot minute since we've seen the Swede on the Janus, so really excited to see what he's going to pull forth with this one, but a little bit more traditional for both teams here on these pick choice selections, and I'm really excited here, Finch, to see whether or not Rival are going to be able to return fire against Obey, drawing first blood of game 1.
And Obey looked very clean in that game 1, so Rival perhaps wanting to show how strong they can look as well. Again, both these teams are qualified. This is to determine who their opponent will be at DreamHack Atlanta next week, as they both made it there already. The one who grabs this win would be going up against Splice, the loser going down up against NRG. We'll see who ends up going where.
Callis getting spotted out right now by Obey's duo lane, and he will be relatively safe here, just stacking up those runes so he can have that first Unchained be a jump stun effect, maybe an opportunity for Vote to get some ricochet poke damage up against Ataraxia.
Callis stunned out yet again, but this whole time Vote's at the purple buff, so Callis won't stick around too long. And Obey recognized that that buff's already gone. They'll head back towards their own. But you were saying we hadn't seen much Janus for Prime. I mean, I feel like Janus is falling out of favor a little bit. We certainly still see him, but nowhere near as much as before.
This LAN, in fact, might be the most Janus we've ever seen. I mean, Death Banner took him for a spin and a couple of times. Not only that, but you've got Venenu, who seemed to kind of lean towards that Janus pick a decent bit. And all these little picks, every single one of them, I can assure you, the coaches that are going to be representing their teams at DreamHack are going to be taking these notes, because if you play it in competitive, you can be expected for strategies to come against whatever you're leaning towards in your god choices.
Really good chance to see how they played and what it is that's valued as Callis takes some decent poke from the Freya. In fact, Callis might be getting a little bit more poke. He'll step forward, but it's Obey Alliance to have backup. CaptainTwig lurking in the jungle, perhaps looking for a gank position. He'll settle for the Oracle instead.
Ataraxia, though, running a little bit low on mana here. But Callis has got to be careful. His health just getting way too low to actually want to risk jumping into Ataraxia and iRaffer. Even though it might lead to a stun, that wouldn't really be very promising for Rival, considering that he could very well get turned upon.
Certainly could, as Deathwalker hanging out on the solo side. Not really going to be looking for much aggression, not up against the Guan Yu, who we also don't see that much of. We might have to hold that thought as Ice is getting chased by CaptainTwig. Prime is right there with him. Unstable Vortex lands, and a potential chance for first blood slips away as Twig cannot lock him down.
Oh, beautiful ricochet, though, from Bode, and that's going to set up the solo kill between the two hunters, and now Callis prompted to move forward even further. He's got the jump, Half-Life reset pretty soon here, might be able to close the gap. Ricochet not going to make it in time.
What a hammer.
And that's going to be the end of it.
Raffer with ice in his veins. iCeicebaby, though, finds CaptainTwig. There will be the second kill of the game. Two quick ones right out of the gate for Rival, getting things started with the Ratatoskr and with Vote feeling it on the Ho-Yi.
A good punish into CaptainTwig as Bakasura. All that thought, though, Ataraxia going to get horrific. That's going to prompt the purification beads, but all Vote needs is one more auto attack, and it's not going to connect. He could still look for a tricky little ricochet, but the rotation from PrettyPriMe has now put Callis and Vote into a pretty tight spot.
Now a chance perhaps for a response from Obey, but they can't lock down Vote. He still has the dive bomb available, heads towards Raffer. And I think he's recognized that he might be in a bad spot here now. Unstable Vortex lands point blank. Vote just getting walked down.
Almost.
Almost.
Almost finding it there, though, with that nice triple bounce ricochet. Unfortunately, he came too little too late. In a 1v4 situation, you're hardly ever going to turn up in the favorable side of that. So for as aggressive as Rival's dual lane wanted to play into Ataraxia off the respawn, Ataraxia, patient as ever, managed to stay cool, calm, and collected, and Obey put themselves on the board with a nice, clean dual lane cleanup.
Came out looking strong, at least here in those last 2 kills. Remember, early, at the very beginning was Rival getting those 2 kills unanswered, but Obey didn't take very long to respond off a bit of an overstep from Rival on the duo side jungle, so they might need to rein that in a little bit and make sure they don't gift away any more kills, as things are now fairly even. Collis a little bit behind iRaffer, but nothing really worth writing home about.
And it's iceicebaby, by the way, who is now pushing into CaptainTwig's jungle. I believe CaptainTwig was successful in stealing away iceicebaby's first speed buff respawn, but after getting punished for it, that did give iceicebaby enough of an edge to where he now feels comfortable choosing to look for those back harpies every single time they're available.
But I was asking you, Taco, we don't see much Guan Yu, I feel like. He still has the heal. That's very strong. The shred as well. I mean, the ultimate is so difficult to try and peel. I mean, why is he falling so much out of fate?
Even though Tallow Assault can have its benefits for sure because of its shred capability, it's just too much risk versus reward at times, I think. Because Guan Yu is better serviced whenever there is an additional healer to help him out. But I think that for the most part, he just doesn't have enough pressure in the early game.
Both going aggressive, finding Ataraxia with a little bit of help from his friends. iceeicebaby is right there with him. Collis looping into the jungle as well, but not going to try anything more. In fact, it's the solo lane where there's more action through space and time. Clips, and Xaliea cleans it up.
For every kill that Rival managed to find, Obey answer back almost immediately after. And so things continue to remain relatively even between these two teams, the only real difference being Rival's first blood advantage. But when you consider the fact that Ataraxia has been under heavy amounts of duress from this Rival squad, it's actually rather impressive that Obey aren't trailing by further.
Certainly could be. They've been able to find small opportunities. The red buff will not be amongst them as Obey are able to defend this time, and they'll send them back to base. It's unfortunate, though, that Guan Yu isn't able to do a little bit more. He always seems to be really strong whenever he comes back in. But you're right, he's one that can be exploited. And perhaps Wlfy about to be exploited now as CaptainTwig drops the regurgitate, but gives up the chase. Wlfy able to just barely survive with about half HP.
Don't come near me or my son ever again. I almost wish they had the matching skins going right now. You can kind of do it between the Outposh and the Bakasura with
that's right, yeah.
newly released Baka skin.
That's right, yeah. It's a good. They're both good. A line of skin that I very much like, and CaptainTwig can't quite complete the kill in middle lane, which is odd. They've been very much reactive, I feel like, so far, and it's been Rival and really Vote who's made some nice plays over there onto Ataraxia. I mean, it's been rough for the Freya so far.
Also, I wanted to readdress that Guan Yu point you brought up earlier about why we don't get to see more of this god, and I think another huge reason behind that is that anti-heal gods are really in the meta right now. There's so many Odins that are being prioritized in early game compositions, as well as the Outposh, that it can be incredibly difficult for a Guan Yu to really have the same sort of impact that we've seen him when he's had his time under the sun.
Buying those anti-heal items isn't as rough as it is before. It certainly can still feel the loss often, but not nearly as bad as it once was. So a lot of factors stacking up to where we don't see nearly as much Guan Yu, but Xaliea favoring it. 1-0-0 right now, a little bit ahead of Deathwalker in this solo matchup after a nice shot from Prime. And we'll see if we can make some good rotations.
I think Vote's just trying to see how many Ricochet bounces he can get to connect. But more importantly, it's Wlfy trying to defend his own red buff, and he will not be successful in doing so, although Twig's beads will be forced out. Nice little Ragnarok there from Collis, but unfortunately nothing more after the fact. iceeicebaby's through the consoles are simply too far away, and I don't think they're going to be able to catch up, but Rival's still looking to push forward. They want the red buff now instead from Obey's side of the jungle.
They'll settle for the invade instead if they can grab it. Regurgitate from CaptainTwig is going to make that difficult. They dropped the horrific emblem, so Collis can be the target. Good job jumping away and using the brutalize, but Xaliea wants Wlfy in the middle lane. He is left and found another target.
Nice Aegis though from Wlfy's going to buy him time for a moment. That T1 tower hitting just a little bit too hard for Xaliea to want to keep that Tallow Assault channeled, but he did get the Aegis out of the Outposh. He was able to kind of invoke that sense of fear enough into Wlfy that his solo laner actually teleported in.
iRaffer forcing some Draconic corruption in the middle lane, but unable to find Wlfy on the Opwash, and that's been important, hasn't he? Is that Wlfy has survived a couple attempts on his life now without having to give up too much. He's been patient with the Aegis, patient with his positioning, and he's going to be able to comfortably make it, at least for this beginning part. His vote is feeling it today, clearly.
That's all he wants. He's just got to rack up as many style points as possible against Ataraxia until eventually he gets the bounce that just ends Ataraxia.
But as you mentioned, I mean, none of this has led to a real substantial lead either direction. The gold is virtually tied still 9 minutes into the game. So is the experience. I mean, yes, there's been some nice kills from Vote. He might be a little bit out in front of Nate, but really not by any significant margin.
I think the big thing also is the fact that when Rival has had the upper hand for a power play moment, Obey has managed to respond with a pick of their own. So it hasn't really given that space and time for Rival to actually look for the Gold Fury or look for a T1 tower siege.
Collis ends up meeting up with Raffer in the jungle, but they elect not to fight. Wlfy has to empty the crypts because Twig is there, but Prime is the one that cleans up the unstable vortex. The drive-by, it feels like, with through space and time. iCeicebaby is able to find PrettyPriMe, and Raffer wants both, but they have no way to catch him, and now the collapse is on as a two-man stun lands from Collis.
Ataraxia went through the wrong portal this time around, forced into that Valkyrie's discretion because the Brutalize would have cleaned him up otherwise, but beautiful peel from CaptainTwig and Raffer is going to ensure that Freya lives to see another day.
Valkyrie's discretion is so good, isn't it? You're able to be out of combat for so long up there in the air, returning damage, and gave time for Ataraxia to reposition for his team to get in close and give him an escape path. A great play from Obey. It started with that kill in the middle lane where they kind of just shoot through with the through space and time.
It wasn't a completely unscathed battle, though, for Obey. Yes, they found a nice pick there onto Wlfy and punished him for having been forced out of that Aegis earlier, thanks to Xalia's rotation. But I also really like that iceicebaby chose to focus out PrettyPriMe because PrettyPriMe took all those portals, and so he had no other escape method. So he just met his own demise into the hands of the Ratatoskr.
But now it's Obey who are the ones being the aggressors. Up until now, it's mostly been Rival and Obey have had to respond or try and say, because they're in left, we'll go right, or whatever their response may be. That time, that was Obey just kind of making the call. Twig dropped the regurgitate and went for the kill, and now Prime might need some backup in the form of Twig. Collis going aggressive in middle lane, but still had the Unchained, so he escapes. But all the while, the tier 1 in left was brought down.
The second those Butcher Blades got procced, Collis wanted nothing more to do with harassing PrettyPriMe. You just can't afford to let that Baka start autoing you, because once he starts, it's so difficult to get him off of you.
Considering starting something with Deathwalker, or maybe they're starting something with him. They've got Earth and Fury, they've got Ragnarok as well, waiting for him once the duration runs out. The stun lands. Unchained does not, however, and the horrific emblem slows everyone, but Xaliea goes back through the portal towards the rest of his team and makes it out, but iceicebaby wants to punish.
3 members of Rival still looking for more. iceicebaby's gonna land, but CaptainTwig all too ready to jump away out of danger. And basically just an ultimate exchange, showing face, but nothing more is really going to come of that.
I can't believe no one has died over there in the jungle path, but everyone makes it out of there A-okay. It turns out in the end, Xaliea the one that was really the furthest forward, but a good portal allows him to connect back with the rest of Obey and then complete the disengage, but still, even with the tower and left coming down, virtually even.
That Unleash the Crypts just prevented Obey from actually pressuring in a little bit harder there. I think that they definitely would have looked for picking off a different member of Rival on that rotation. It's just, you don't want to fight into the outwash damage. How many times this LAN already have we seen teams try to take on engagements while those crypts are running, and they just get punished for it so severely?
It's so much damage in such a large area, you really feel denied from walking through that space, and Rival have been making good use of it here from Wlfy so far, who's only taken 1 spill despite how much attention he's been shown. I do want to spend some attention elsewhere on this build from Ataraxia. He always builds his own thing. He always does a little bit differently. And when he's in this matchup against the physical damage dealer, he likes to go at the helm.
I think it's just the fact that he likes having the extra little bit of survivability. Having that extra little edge of tankiness could be the difference between life or death for a Freya. And when he's already 0-2, having been heavily targeted early on, I think it's safe to say that Nate just doesn't want to die anymore.
That's probably part of the case, though. It is something that he likes to build pretty often. It does still have some power on it as well, so it's a bit hybrid. I believe 60 available to Ataraxia from it, so he can still try and trade with both. He's only a little bit ahead of him in terms of experience. Ataraxia's done a good job staying relevant, at least throughout this early game so far in the laning phase, as Collis and iRaffer trade blows, but nothing much comes of it. But Obey might want to be a part of this red buff.
The disarm was applied, but iRaffer doesn't have that hammer any longer to try and steal away that red buff. Already expended it, looking for a stun onto Collis. And so without Obey, just fall back to the safety of their own side of the map. Collis lurking in the jungle though, hoping to get a nice jump chain onto Ataraxia, but this is dangerous. This Fenrir is only level 9.
Gold Fury now being started up by Obey, daring Rival to come in. And this might be more about baiting the fight than the objective as Ataraxia gets stunned. Vote's been hot all day long with those ricochet stuns. Jumping in as Collis will be the first wave of initiation with Unstable Vortex. It's hard. Now Wlfy drops down the crypts and iRaffer might be stuck in it. And Collis continues to pull him around, but it's Twig who finds Wlfy on the back end of the fight. But Wlfy responds by taking down Xaliea too.
Xaliea came charging through into that Unleash the Crypts, and it was just way too much damage for him to handle. Vote's gonna find another one onto iRaffer after the fact, and now Ataraxia trying to escape, but there'll be no escape anytime soon for this Freya. Once the Valkyrie's discretion has already been used, you have nowhere left to run. And now Team Rival looking to take down this Gold Fury.
And they should be able to, but Taco, that seems stubborn from Obey. They pull the Gold Fury, they try and force the fight. Wlfy covers a large area with his own ultimate, and Obey just fight into it. What they see that made them want to try and force that fight?
I think it was just Collis's Ragnarok not going onto an ideal target that might have baited Obey into thinking that that was an engagement they could very easily win, because normally Collis has to play, I think, a pretty heavy part of the initiation here from Rival, but when you see him just running around chomping away in the air, unable to connect onto anybody, you begin to think this engagement is ours to take. Xaliea just went a little bit too deep without the rest of Obey to back him up just yet, and by the time they started pushing forward, it ended up just putting them even more so out of position than what they were originally intending.
And even though Wlfy died, he got so much relevant damage off before that it was able to be used to help set up a trade. And Vote was essentially unchecked in that engagement. You saw on our recap chart, he was near 2,000 damage he contributed, I think, from basics alone. So when he's able to kind of sit in the back and just line him up, it's hard to win fights. Obey have got to keep better track of where that Hoi is.
iceicebaby trying to see if he can force out any relics or even the ultimate from iRaffer, but will be unsuccessful in doing so. That Gold Fury, though, still not really giving much of a lead in either direction. There's about 1,000 gold separating these two teams, and at 16.5 minutes, Finch, might as well be nothing at all.
No,
but I guess every little bit does count.
I agree. This is not, it's still very, very close between these two teams, and it's a big adjustment from Rival because, in all honesty, Obey looked much better in game number 1. They were much cleaner. Now, I think Rival was maybe venturing a little bit further outside of their normal, god selections and picks and bans than what they might do at DreamHack. No, they are already confirmed to go, but it's impressive that Rival were able to bounce back in such a big way.
Xaliea, though, wishing that he could be anywhere else but here, but don't worry, Xaliea, you will get a chance to leave the solo lane. It's just not exactly by your own desires, of course. But now with this power play moment, I kind of want to see Rival just group up in the middle lane. That T1 in mid has already been chipped away at pretty heavily, standing at just a little over half health. And I think that they could take it, but they've got better plans. Instead, why not go for the Fire Giant?
Half HP, they're dropping the Suns. The full commit from Team Rival. Prime goes in the Unstable Vortex, but he's too early. Rival destroy the Fire Giant. iRaffer transforms, but he might be throwing his life away. Twig comes in a little bit too late as well, trying to look for a low health target. Ataraxia gets Wlfy, but Twig ends up falling in trade. Valkyrie's discretion finds no one else, and a 2-man banish might be enough.
But Ataraxia and PrettyPriMe, they've got to separate. Aegis is good from PrettyPriMe, and it'll buy him a little bit of time, but the Bloodforge proc onto iceicebaby is going to make sure that Ataraxia gets away from here.
Xaliea goes for the damage on the horse instead of for the multi-man stun. Everyone walks past him and goes right for Ataraxia. Collis is going to die to the tower shot. Xaliea gets credit for it, but a big fight from Rival. They lose 2, they get 4, and the Fire Giant.
Fire Giant definitely still worth it as well because it went onto some pretty primed candidates. iceicebaby, Deathwalker, and Vote all still having that Fire Giant buff means that Rival can still look to try and siege up some of the towers once Wlfy and Collis are respawned. plus that additional little bit of gold that they all just acquired from nearly wiping, or actually no, that was practically an unofficial deicide because Xaliea just happened to respawn in for the teleport onto that T2 to try and help heal for Ataraxia.
Now Rival in a very controlling position. They'll grab the tier 1 and right, and there's still plenty more gold to be farmed across the map. About 5,000 total if you count the tier 2s and the tier 1. And that could really start pushing things out of control because still it's only about 4,000 that Rival have right now. That's not something that Obey can't fight into. But if they grab all these towers and they go back and spend that gold, then Obey could potentially be in a tough spot.
And I'm pretty sure that CaptainTwig on that last play, he had like a 3 or 4 man regurgitate cripple in effect, but he could not survive the damage of that Unleash the Crimps, just like PrettyPriMe not wanting to take his chances with the members of Rival. That was a nasty ricochet bounce damage out of Vote. And that'll cost PrettyPriMe his through space and time for the purple buff. I'm not sure that's the trade you're really looking for this late into the match.
You're right to say that Twig had a good regurgitate in the last fight, but the problem was everyone was basically full health. No other relevant damage had been done by his team. Prime was nearby, but was more focused on trying to steal the objective than dealing damage. iRaffer jumped in too, but that's a Fafnir. He didn't provide a whole lot. Essentially, Twig was alone, and even though it was a good ult, it just wasn't enough.
Unstable Vortex won't be able to connect off of that banish from Freya, but the T2 tower will fall, much to Rival's happiness and Obey. They're still looking to play defense. I like this from Twig, though. This Baka isn't going to really be all that beneficial on these tower defenses. I think that if Twig were to try and commit right now onto Rival, he would just get controlled and abused until he was dead. But at least this way, you can get a little bit of gold in the pocket here for Obey.
As long as they don't give up this Phoenix, they can still feel good about it. Xaliea is forced up into the cavalry charge right away. Half HP now from to the left-hand side. iRaffer has to jump out of there, and Rival fall back. They've baited out a couple or at least unultimate and some cooldowns, so they can feel good now about resieging patiently.
Decent amounts of self-sustain, though, from Rival's side of things. You got the Terra with a little bit of team AoE healing, and not only that, iceicebaby, Wlfy, Vote, and Kallis in their own god kits have ways to get just small little ticks of health going for them. And since the Phoenix was a little bit out of the question, a little bit too soon here, I respect this from Rival to just have the player discipline to fall back to the guaranteed objectives like the Gold Fury.
Very unlikely to be able to force the Phoenix down. Once Obey showed up in their true numbers, they'll just settle for the Gold Fury. But Rival so far have done a good job just grouping up and fighting as a team, largely around Wlfy, I feel like, and the damage on this offline. But Vote has apparently been feeling it all game long. It started with the ricochets in lane to put Ataraxia behind. He's been placing the Suns perfectly as well. Vote's had a great game so far.
He's 6-1-4. All he really looked to do was just smother Ataraxia early on, and that's the impact that a Hou-Yi can have in that Freya matchup. I'm not going to call it a counter by any means. It's just that Vote understood Ataraxia working with a slightly smaller health pool than his own. So all he really had to do was just keep that Mark of the Crow constantly procced onto Ataraxia, looking for those double bounces to get the additional damage ticks going. And those steady and consistent ricochets are the primary reason why Ataraxia was bullied underneath his T1 for so long.
Now we're about 15 seconds away from the Fire Giant respawning. This will be the second one of the game. Rival grabbed theirs so early on in the match. It's hard to believe we're only 22 minutes in, but they've suddenly started to turn the pace of this game up another notch. Ricochet from Vote, just trying to fire him in rhythm now. That one doesn't hit, but certainly could have. Fire Giant's up, but Rival aren't ready just yet to start pulling.
You gotta kick them while they're down sometimes, and when you're dealing with a team like Obey, I would not want to take any chances either if I'm in Rival's position. They have the lead in terms of itemization and a little bit of experience, enough so that Obey are still posturing around this Fire Giant pit, debating whether or not they should try to commit.
Ataraxia has been caught by Deathwalker. They drop the Earth and Fury, vanishes there, yes, but Ataraxia just too far forward. Wlfy eradicates him. Wlfy then, or actually through space and time, comes out as well, but the Aegis is enough to avoid the damage from PrettyPriMe. They do indeed empty the crypts, and Xaliea rides the horse right on through, but Obey are done with this fight.
Obey still have a couple of ults. Well, actually just iRaffer's Draconic form. Can't really factor in Ataraxia here since he died so quickly. But that's part of the dangers of trying to decide on whether or not you want to commit to the Fire Giant. You are so much anywhere near Team Rival, and they just answer that question for you. They immediately pounced onto Obey once a couple of the members stepped a little bit too far forward. And I like seeing that pressure from Rival.
And it really was just a bit too far forward. Even once Deathwalker saw him, Ataraxia stayed pushed up, and the Earth and Fury was on him, and he was going to take all that extra damage, and he ends up getting caught up in the rest of Rival too. And once Ataraxia falls, so much of the damage from Obey is lost. It's been so dependent on that burst from this Freya. So once Rival picked him, they felt free to keep pushing.
CaptainTwig also had a pretty rough time there with Xaliea because Rival split apart Obey so efficiently by sending iceicebaby in that through the Cosmos to focus out PrettyPriMe. He was able to pull out the Janus' Aegis so early on in that engagement that PrettyPriMe was basically only left with the option of hard resetting there, abandoning the rest of his team, and causing it so that Rival could then push forward confidently.
Well, all the tier 2 towers have been taken down now, Taco. It's just the Phoenixes that Rival can go siege at their leisure. And they've got a competition that shouldn't be too bad at it. We talk about how good Opwash is at defending, but in the offense, he's not that bad either. As Ice and CaptainTwig trade blinks on the solo side of the map. It's actually Obey that are somewhat grouped up near the tier 2.
And right around now, I think that I would rather see iceicebaby exchange his blink than CaptainTwig to not get anything out of blinking onto a target. I think Twig held on to that regurgitate initially because he was expecting iceicebaby to try and ult immediately. I think CaptainTwig's mentality there was to at least force something. Just like VOD is forcing Obey to remember that these bounces are going to keep connecting.
He's been landing them all game long. And VOD does seem like one of the oft-forgotten stars of our league, but VOD a very, very strong hunter in his own regard. Long ago, Rival were just the team that worked together better than you, but I think that they've improved to the point where they all are individual stars in their role as well, as Ice keeps Twig pinned down and right.
But this split push is more problematic for Rival, I think, than Obey. I would prefer to see Ice just grouping with the rest of Team Rival, because the Bakasura is going to win the 1v1 usually.
Deathwalker's been banished, but Collis brings iRaffer right back into the crypts, and VOD has too much damage. Prime can't even make it through the portal very quickly. Rival have gotten a 2-for-0 left side Phoenix down, and Twig has to jump away. Obey Alliance are routed.
Wlfy could be in trouble here, though. A little bit too deep on this Puch. And the Valkyrie's discretion has come forward. Shell gonna save his life for a moment, but then there's the cavalry charge from Xaliea to bring down this Puch once and for all.
Twig trying to find some kills, but the regurgitate forces out the Aegis from VOD. He'll set up for Collis first, but he jumps forward and is able to find the double kill onto VOD as well. What looked like a great fight for Rival gets overcommitted. CaptainTwig finds a triple kill and sends Rival running.
Deathwalker, he's bound to have his cooldowns any second now. He's still trying to run away from CaptainTwig, but forward is hardly ever the answer against the Bakasura. There's just so much movement speed. Deathwalker trying to buy himself some time, but that's only going to permit the members of Obey to catch up.
Yeah, Deathwalker's in a whole lot of trouble here. Twig should be able to shoot for him eventually, so hard to imagine the world was able to make it out with no one else responding soon. A great defense from Team Rival, or from Obey Alliance rather, really. That looked like a great fight for Rival to start things off. They got those 2 great picks, and it still wasn't enough to close out. Somehow Deathwalker is certainly still alive.
Deathwalker is just on the run as always, but will finally be brought down. That cavalry charge just came up off cooldown, I think, for Xaliea, so he made sure to use it because there was no chance that Rival or Obey were going to be content with letting Deathwalker survive.
But what went so wrong for Rival in that last fight? It was a 5v3 in their favor.
It was Wlfy a little bit too far up. He got a little bit cocky there towards the end, I think, wanted to farm some player damage and felt like with the rest of his team close by, he would be perfectly fine, but Obey just immediately collapsed on top of the Puch, forced out his relic super early on, and by the time the rest of Rival started to turn tail to help him out, it was already too late. It was just so much expended to try and peel for this Puch, and it just did not work out in the end.
Into the crypt's been forced out early. Xaliea going beyond the rest of his team to try and find the Opwash, but Opwash didn't heal. Now it's Twig here, and he's gobbling him up. Kalis into the Ragnarok, has to try and run away, but iRaffer jumping in as well. Portal there from the rest of Obey, but they don't want to aggress too far. They got their pick. They'll settle for it because Fire Giant is just about to respawn.
This is not a good look right now for Team Rival. Sure, they might have that left side Phoenix still removed, but Obey, without having to worry about this Outwash, I'm pretty sure that was the best bet they had for some steal potential. iceicebaby does still have that through the Cosmos, but this Fire Giant is just getting burned.
Ice blinks forward. The Aegis is forced out from PrettyPriMe as Obey collect the Fire Giant. Deathwalker's been banished, but Ice goes up onto the tree looking for a target. But now that Obey have grouped up and Ice is alone, he has to retreat. Fire Giant, 29 minutes into the game, has finally swung in Obey's favor.
iceicebaby just wanted PrettyPriMe on that one, but was unable to find the Janus. Great recognition there from Obey. After PrettyPriMe probably calls out that his portal was forced out of him and the Aegis, they all look to play defense for this Janus so that he wouldn't fall victim to an early pickoff right after getting the Fire Giant.
Obey decide they don't want to go for the right side, Phoenix. They come back for Pyromancer instead. But look at Rival. They're looking for him in the jungle. At least Kalis and Deathwalker and Vote are pushing forward aggressively. They'll find nothing there, and instead Obey will have to settle for the defense for now. They've got some money to go back and spend to try and bring things back to closeness. Remember, the experience is irrelevant. Everyone's very much even at this point. It's just about, what, 3,000 or so gold that separates them?
Well, a little bit more than that thanks to that last Gold Fury from Rival, but you're right, Finch. This really is nowhere near as much of a experience or gold gap as what you would have originally expected, considering how far ahead Rival felt like they were at one point. As it was pretty much all downhill after that initial siege of the left side Phoenix because of the aggressive pathing that Rival chose to take towards the mid-hand Phoenix. And I think if they just hard reset and gone through the bottom side underneath that wall instead of inside of the base itself, Obey very well might have lost 2 Phoenixes and still been on the back foot here.
And Twig has done a much better job finding good spots to drop the Regurgitate in these fights. It's no surprise that that's been the big turnaround for them. That's what's set up for them to defend the left side Phoenix and find the Fire Giant as well. Now it's the script is flipped a bit, and you got to watch Rival, and they've got to make sure that CaptainTwig's not getting lost in these fights.
Not even just CaptainTwig, but Wlfy. They need to start really looking towards protecting this Outwash because that is so much of Rival's range burst damage. And Vote, he's done a pretty fantastic job on this Hou-Yi, sure, but it's still not as much as what the Outwash has been able to bring.
Yet another pick for CaptainTwig. This time it's Vote. The Hou-Yi takes the 1v1 and loses it convincingly. Twig is going to fall to iceicebaby, but through space and time brings the entirety of Obey over to the corpse of their friend. Now in the 4v4, they can try and go down this middle Phoenix.
CaptainTwig already served his purpose, though. He not only finds Hold that thought, though. Ataraxia just exploding for a second there.
The damage from Wlfy was just too much. Ice was going to capitalize, but Ataraxia burns him in response. Kalis dies as well, a double for Ataraxia on the Freya, turning up. Nate may have struggled early, but he's here to play now.
And he's going to be able to lifesteal also off of the red buff if he so chooses, or just the Guan Yu heals alone. It doesn't even matter here. But Obey, with 3 members dead from Rival Vote, he's going to respawn in just about 10 seconds here. But there is a creep wave pushing in on that left-hand side. This could very well be Obey's chance to take down this left Phoenix.
Vote should at least be here for the defense, but he will not have the ultimate available to help out. PrettyPriMe is keeping the wave pushed up in mid while the other 3 are pushing on the left-hand side of the map. Deathwalker and Wlfy both there for the defense, and iRaffer takes quite a bit of poke. Prime still split pushing on his own and finding nothing there. Left side Phoenix low, but they can't bring it all the way down. Obey split up, and instead of getting 1 Phoenix, they get 0.
Successful defense there from Rival. Despite not having the numbers advantage, they still felt like they could defend, and they were correct in believing so because Obey backing off respectfully, just not really willing to risk wiping against Rival now that they finally got some of the game momentum in their favor.
But yet again, doesn't it always seem like when Obey's winning fights, it just starts with Twig? He finds the pick on the boat in that fight, and yes, he does end up getting traded out by iceicebaby. But once they have removed Vote from the fight, it was mostly Ataraxia that was the strongest damage dealer left in this fight. He gets dove in the back line and just blows up anyone that gets near him.
That should be the last time, though, that we ever see Vote or Wlfy by themselves. Neither of these carries can really afford to be anywhere on this map without somebody else nearby from their team, because it's just too easy right now for Twig to just jump right on top of them or blink in, drop the regurgitate, and have the follow-up of just chasing them down. If you leave your carry in a 1v1 environment with a Bakasura, the Baka will always win. Usually.
Very often, I agree with you, and I don't see any reason why it would be any different here in this situation. Prime keeps the minion wave pushed up and left. iceicebaby is there with him, and they'll certainly see him on that ward that he just countered. The rest of Obey posturing around the Fire Giant, trying not to let Rival control the vision, the space around the late game objective.
This is smart, though, to send the Janus, of all people, to push out the left-hand lane, because with through space and time, PrettyPriMe can be in the action as quick as anyone else, probably even faster than what a teleport would be able to suffice. So I like the initiative that Obey are trying to take here by not only threatening the Fire Giant, but the team fight now as well.
Xaliea gonna start things off. Through space and time rips through, but doesn't really hit home on much of anyone. Wlfy is just dropping damage in the back, but it's Twig who's being burned too quickly. That's a key member for Obey that's been removed. iRaffer falls as well, and now Xaliea left alone on the backside of the team fight with 5 members barreling down. This one's a nightmare for Obey.
Xaliea was just trying to waste some time here, but with 3 members dead and such a convincingly won fight from Rival, that'll be a quick and easy Fire Giant to follow it up. And I can bet almost anything, Finch, that it'll be Rival looking for that left-hand Phoenix once again to start things off.
And I think that's why we see Prime trying to keep that wave pushed up to make it as hard for Rival as it can. But Rival's not worried about the duo side of the map. They're heading right over to the solo lane. Monolith blocking the ricochet. Okay. And they will instead go for the right side Phoenix. Ataraxia will be here, but these 2 carries, they're going to have a hard time on any front line defending up against all 5 of Rival.
Defending is out of the question here. Go for poke, sure, whatever you can find, but do not throw your life away. In fact, Rival might not even be giving Obey the chance to respawn. They're going straight for the Titan end.
Rival want to try and bring this to an end right here. The Titan already well below half, and there's nothing Obey Alliance can do. Rival take game 2. We're going to game 3 in the winners bracket finals.
Rival and Obey still going toe-to-toe and trying to remind the other that the king of Europe, or at least for the placement rounds, is still yet to be determined.
And look at Obey. They recognize that they had a chance to close this one out and just couldn't quite finish it off. So instead, they'll have to go into a game 3 and give it another try. But Rival did a much better job bouncing back here in this game number 2. Game 1 was Obey's from front to back, but they looked much improved here.
It looked so promising at first, too, for Obey. After they were able to find those initial couple of picks off the failed mid-Phoenix siege from Rival, you would almost think that they were going to be able to close this one out. They got the Fire Giant, they had the left-hand Phoenix push, but I think things kind of just fell apart when Obey threw space and timed over to where iceicebaby, or excuse me, where CaptainTwig was at, because when they went to go and peel for their Baka, he was already dead. By the time that through space and time even made it over to where he was at, CaptainTwig had already been taken care of by iceicebaby. I think if they had chosen to just stay focused on that left-hand Phoenix, they might have been able to pull that one off.
Unfortunately, without Twig, they were missing a lot of their damage. That is going to do it for game 2. Game number 3 here in just a moment, but before that, the analysts break it down.
Thank you, Finch and Taco, for that game. And boys, we're going to game 3.
Honestly, it was a more standard draft, I would say, coming out of Rival this time around. Terra in the solo lane, Puch in the mid lane. But the Bakasura jungle for CaptainTwig just didn't do enough, I think, in the mid to late game. Bakasura kind of falls off, and that's what happened in game 2.
I mean, he had the one great fight on the Phoenix defenses, but it was really just for me, this Puch is impossible to fight into in these team fights. That Puch ult just covers way too much ground for you to be able to advance easily. No shell on the side of Obey Alliance. That can sometimes help get you through that Puch ult, especially without Wlfy going for Gem of Isolation. He really has not been going for that item at all so far this week, even on Poseidon and other gods where you'd be used to seeing it. So I don't know that Sprint is necessarily the call. I wonder if Shell would have helped Obey more.
Looking at some of the healing here from Xaliea here, he was just a non-impact with the healing department considering the Outwash anti-healing came through.
Well, Access Replay bringing us these post-game stats. You can see Outwash hurts a lot. 34,000 player damage. It's not often that we see these, even over 25,000 damage games, but Wlfy really putting up some big numbers this match.
I definitely like his performance, and iceicebaby, though, was just all over the map, playing this Ratatoskr jungle. I like the fact that they're flexing to still a pick that's been kind of left forgotten with the addition of Pele, Mercury, Erlang, Shen. Ratatoskr is still in the darkness, just waiting to be picked.
I think Rat has definitely been undervalued so far this LAN. I mean, he is a god that still gets early pressure very well, can still be disruptive in these late-game team fights, can peel, can initiate for you. Ratatoskr can do a lot, and iceicebaby put it all on display.
Can we still just talk about how much hype Ricochet is when you can get a nice little bounce off it? I mean, First Blood that went over to Vote was probably one of the funnest plays because it's just level 1, you're fighting under tower, double Ricochet here, but iceicebaby really showing up on this Ratatoskr, doing some great work for his team.
Picking up the Bloodforge as well, trying to get that water fall trickle-down effect to keep the team fights lasting a little bit longer. This is the level 2 play, and honestly, with Rival first picking the Fenrir, that double stun, doing a lot of base damage, absorbing so much attention there. Dive bomb after the fact. Ataraxia was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Vote has been on fire all LAN long, and it doesn't surprise me that he's keeping it going here on the Saturday as he's trying to make sure that he is the top seed alongside the rest of Rival coming out of these placements.
And the winner of this will face off against Splice, the North American SPL team. Loser will go facing off the Yemen-less Energy, and North America has struggled so far against Europe in spring and in summer. That could be a reoccurring theme for the fall.
Well, as we see them continuing through here, Vote just putting on a clinic with this Ho Yi, but not only that, the Outwash you saw doing a lot of damage into that fight here, and Rival really showed up that they really wanted to win that second game. As much fun as game number 1 was, they just did not want to lose.
It was all about space control. The Hu Yi, the Outwash, it was difficult, like you mentioned, Aggro, to get in the thick of things. Xaliea piloting this Guan, you couldn't really get in there without taking a whole bunch of damage in return.
And whereas the Ratatoskr can get up and over these frontliners and deal relevant damage that way onto the back line, it's a little bit more difficult for characters like Bakasura. Xaliea could get onto the Outwash some of these fights, but then Twig was going to have some trouble. Or even if Twig did get there, Kalos was there with that Ragnarok to peel.
And I think PrettyPriMe did a good job on the Janus specifically, allowing both this Bakasura Guan Yu to get in and out of the action, but you only have a finite amount of portals to help your teammates.
As we get set up here, the players getting back to their stations. It's going into game number 3. We mentioned the winner takes on Splice at the World Championships at DreamHack Atlanta. Loser faces off against NRG. Both these teams, they really have shown, even in the silliness, they still have that competitive aspect. They really do want to get that victory going for them.
Game 3, I'm not expecting anything different between these two teams. Game 1, it was Obey first picking Fenrir. Game 2, Rival electing for it. We'll see what Obey decides to do with their pick order.
Could be Obey going for first pick again, but this Fenrir is 2-0. I don't know that I'd be willing to first pick it again, though. I just feel like there's some other things that you can get right now that end up helping your team a bit more.
Yeah, but how can you argue with the stats, Aggro? 2-0 Fenrir, man. The stats don't lie.
It's true.
It's just like the Xiblanque earlier. He was 2-0. You pick Xiblanque first out, the team's winning on that one.
I guess so.
It's the Xiblanque effect into this one.
What if you just pick Ares and put him in the soul lane?
I mean,
that could there too. Right?
That could be happening too.